Hello guys, welcome back to Over the Top. Chris here. Today on my channel is Hawaiian Shirt Day, and there's one thing I know when I'm working in the basement: do not wear your nice clothes, because I get dirty for the most part. Okay guys, what we're going to do today is first we're going to just go over a few things, and we're going to build a small tray to using your electrolysis for your smaller items that you may not be able to get a a hook into or whatever, or get it wrapped up. So again guys, thanks for all your comments. I've learned actually a lot of things. There's a few questions that have come up and that I just kind of want to address a certain thing. I wasn't aware of this. In England, I guess when you find an artifact or whatever, I guess it's got to go through a process where it's got to be handed in. What was the term he used? I believe it was anyway. They cannot use salt or anything in these electrolysis machines. So in their case, I was told water only. So just be sure, anyone who's watching this video, make sure you're aware of the legalities within your antiquities or whatever you're finding. Again, this is a video. I'm not going to say it necessarily needs to be for just your metal detecting finds. You can use it on your home tools or whatever you may have that has rusted up. So this is not just geared towards metal detecting. It has other applications as well, where you can strip rust off of items. Another thing as well, electrolysis, the way it works is it actually strips away the rust and not necessarily the bare metals. I'm sure if you left it in there long enough, it may eat away at it, but you probably won't have that situation. So basically, it just it attacks the rust. So you have no issues there. I keep an eye on it. I never leave my electrolysis unattended. A lot of, like, mine is ventilated near a window to the outside, which I recommend you all ventilate. Make sure there's a bit of off-gassing with salt. There is some concerns about chlorine gas. Very, very minuscule. Nothing to alarm yourself with. It will dissipate. And as long as you're ventilated, no problem. Like I said, I recommend you do it outside because the electrolysis actually will split the oxygen and hydrogen, and it does create the bubbles that you see coming up is hydrogen gas and oxygen, which can be explosive. So it will dissipate, but I'd recommend be done outdoors or out in a shed that's well ventilated. Don't do it. Be safe about it. Again, always unplug your electrolysis machine when handling it. So yeah, there's another question that came up was, can you use it on coins? I would not recommend using it on valuable coins or coins that you feel that shouldn't be cleaned. I wouldn't do that with this. What I'm doing right now is I've just got some spare change, non-valuable items, things like pennies, copper, non-copper. Zinc pennies. I threw a couple quarters in there that are cladded quarters, nickels. I put no valuable coins in there, just to show you guys what they look like after. And it's a good for me as well. I'd like to see what it looks like coins. I know I took a look at it previously, and a lot of the green sludge you get on the copper came off real easy, and they weren't even in there very long. So it doesn't take long. Again, don't leave it in there too long. It could create problems. It should just attack the stuff that's attached to the metal and shouldn't really eat away at the metal. Alright, so what we're going to do today is, again, we're going to make a small tray that will allow you to place items in that you can't attach a wire to or whatever. Like the previous one where I was hanging it off and I had a hook on it and that was fine. But some items you can't do that with. So what I'm going to do here is we'll build a small basket together, and I'll show you the steps that I've created. I've done a lot of testing on it, and there are some things to be aware of while you're doing this, things to do, not to do. So let's bring you over, and we'll show you what you're going to need. So again, not a lot needed for this project. The main part you're going to need is roughly a 12 by 12 quarter-inch screen. I guess it'd be like garden fencing. So yeah, you'll need at least 12 by 12 with this. Mine came in a roll, and with that roll actually came with some binding wire, which is good and handy. You come to this project, so I'll be using that. If you don't have binding wire, I'm sure you can just use some other sort of wire with it, and we'll get to that when we do it. You will need a smaller gauge wire. Not sure the gauge is this. It's relatively thick. It's not huge, but I don't think that really matters. As long as it's not too thin where it'll just dissolve away. You don't want that. And again, I have a larger piece of copper that I found metal detecting that I will use as well. As far as tools go, very simple tools. Right here, I just got a pair of side cutters. That will work fine. Flathead screwdriver, or some screwdriver you will need. Not to screw anything in, just to help with the holes on this. This is actually a bit thicker gauge than my last piece I used, so it's just harder to get through the holes. You'll need a sharp knife of some sort in case it's needed. I only used it just to punch the holes in the side of the thing, but you may or may not need a sharp knife. And that's basically it for supplies that you're going to need. Now, if you don't have side cutters, honestly, it's much easier to, if you have side cutters, use side cutters to cut this. Or like the aluminum cutters, so much easier. Honestly, it's cold outside. Mine are in the shed. These are here. This is what I'm going to use. The magic of camera, I can fast forward that step and it'll seem like seconds to you guys, and it'll take me about 20 minutes, but I am in no hurry. I recommend highly that you wear gloves doing this and eye protection. These things are sharp, they cut you open. I have a few dings on there on my hands already, just because I choose not to wear gloves at this time. Probably a good idea, but I don't have any handy. So I'm not going to use them. Just for me, it's easier. Just because I got to do a lot of fine threading and the gloves will get in the way. But anyway, I recommend you wear them. Eyeglasses as well. When I do any cutting here, I look away, so don't worry about that. All right, we'll step back and we'll start the assembly process, and we will get it moving. Okay, the first thing we're going to deal with is the sheet of screening. A lot of this dimensions is going to basically depend on how your electrolysis tank is set up. If you have a deep tank, you can make this a little deeper. If you have a wide tank, you can make it wider, smaller, whatever dimension you want. But just for this purpose, I kept it kind of simple. Basically, like almost 4x4 panels. So what we're gonna do, let's see if I still have that handy. I don't think I do. Anyway, so I think what I did last month, I just counted out 16 squares along the top here, and I'm gonna cut down about 16. I'll eyeball the first one, and then I'll count it out and do the same on the other side. The idea is I kind of want to keep it pretty uniform, so we'll do that. So I'll probably cut my first one right in. Looks like about, yeah. So we'll go about here. So we're looking, 3.5, 4 inches, somewhere in that area. This isn't rocket science. We're not putting anyone on the moon. We're building a little bowl to stick in our electrolysis. So, just a guideline for you guys. However you want to do it, it's up to you. You can change it up as much as you want. It's your basket. Actually, I thought of a good idea too. If your electrolysis is big enough, an old fryer basket, it would save you all this extra step. There's a good opportunity there if you actually have a fryer basket hanging around from a deep fryer. Looks like a good idea. Okay, so we're gonna go right about here. Looks good. Count that out. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so about 16 squares over is where I'm going to go for my first cut. Now, I'll probably skip through a lot of this because I'm using I'm doing one at a time. So just bear with me. We'll fast forward till I'm done this part. Okay, so I've gone 15 squares here, and now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go over. I'm going to come in, I believe it was 15 here, and then I'm going to go up 15. Yeah, 15, 15. That's perfect. Okay, so these two sides are now complete. Now, on the direct opposite of that side that you just cut, you're going to do the same thing on this side. So duplicate exactly what you did down there up on this side. Okay, so that's all the cutting of that's going to be required. That's it. So at this point now, I'm just going to pre-cut, you know, 4 or 5 of these, you know, 2-3 inches long. Doesn't have to be exact. Yeah, there's 6 of them there. That should be plenty. If I need more, I'll just cut more. It only takes a second. Okay, so now what we're going to do is now we're just going to fold these up. That's it. Just fold them up. Make your little basket. Okay, now when you get this shape here, like an eye, go ahead and just take off one side down each one of these. Just take that right off. Leave the strip down here. Won't need that. I'll do the same on this side. Okay, so now we'll take this end here and just fold it up into this one. I'm going to try to interlace them the best I can. Just for a little bit of added strength. Alright. And just try to crimp the back. Try to make it as square as possible. Okay, I just take a couple pieces of that little wire or baling wire and just go ahead and just tighten up these corners just so you don't have any anything slipping out or falling out of the basket. Get it nice and tight as you can. Too tight. Should be alright. That's the problem with this baling wire. It's work hardening, so as the more you work it, the more brittle it gets and it'll break on you. Of course, copper is the same thing. Alright, so got one on the top. We'll put one on the bottom here. That should be plenty. I just trim off the excess and just fold it over. And then we'll do the same with this other side. Here, I'll just bring it a little closer here so you can have a look. Okay, hopefully you can see where I meant by interlacing. I kind of drove these pegs into the closed holes in here just to give it that added support. You can go ahead and bend over the extra tabs just to lock it in place. It's just, you don't have, this is optional. Again, I like to go in after and just knock those down anyway, just because they'll rip your fingers to pieces. Alright. So take the baling wire and just go through an open hole on this side and out on this side. Just twist it. This side is actually a little easier. You probably could have done the same with this side, what I can do with this side. The problem I found here is that if you have too much metal, you could overload your power supply. Mine actually, I tried interlacing it with a lot of copper and stuff like that, and I ended up burning out my electrodes. My cathode and just anode just got chewed right up. They were gone. Here, I'll see if I got one here. I think I threw them away already. Anyway, within half an hour, the big rod I was using the drill bit was completely disintegrated within half an hour. Like I said, I don't leave it unattended, and I heard the motor wind up on the power supply, so I knew it was overloaded. So again, just bend this one up, crimp it again at the bottom just to make it a nice square edge as you can. And then do the same for the sides. Fold the sides over onto the other side, and then just give it a good crimp. That's okay. So now again, I'll do the same thing. I'll take the baling wire and I'll just do up the roughly on the corners. It's fine. Just a quick, just to hold it together. Doesn't take much. Great thing about these is they don't take long to make. If you need to make different sizes, I mean this. Better break another one. These this benzene is dirt cheap. I picked up a whole roll of it, I think, just for a couple bucks. And, you know, it's like 20 feet or something like that. It's pretty cheap stuff. I've actually had this for a while. I was going to use it for a different project back in the summer, and I never used it. So again, we'll do the same on this side. Make sure it's all buttoned up. And twist it off. Trim it. I think I need one more piece. Right here. Probably would have had enough if I didn't break them. I think I broke more this time than I did when I first made the first two. And trim it off. Okay, so there's the basket that would get submerged down into your electrolysis tank. So very simple, easy to do. The toughest part is just trying not to get cut up. Now for the this will be the hanger that you're going to hang this from. The copper, the heavier copper. I mean, if you don't have a big, giant, thick copper piece like this, a little bit smaller will be fine. I mean, the more copper you get like this, the bigger load you are going to put, more resistance you're going to put on your power supply. It could cause it to overheat. So this is probably a little overkill, but everything seems to be working fine right now with the one I got going. Now, depending on the depth of your water and the bottom of your electrolysis tank, is going to determine where this is going to go. So there could be some fine tuning in play. You could also adjust it. The holes where you put it in here, you can put it further down, but you don't want to go too low because then it'll start tipping on you. So anyway, I'm going to cut this up roughly where I think it will be good. And we'll go from there. Again, I'm going to look away. Ooh, that's some thick copper. There we go. Flying away on me. Okay. So here we go. Just what you're gonna do is just bend it, like kind of like a triangle, just like this. So now what you're gonna do here is just take your side cutters, pliers, whatever you need to use for this, but I like using the side cutters, and just bend it in, like so. I'll give that one more bend. Luckily it's copper, you can always adjust it. So this is where, this might not be too bad on this one, but you just hook it in, roughly center into the sides. Oh, I don't need the pliers. So yeah, if the hole just, you know, if you do it this way, you end up with the other way where you keep those two pieces on, you end up with thickness of 3 here, and it's hard to get the holes, and that's where I was putting the screwdriver through. So now that it's in, I'm going to try to bend it up a little bit higher just to keep it from falling out. We don't want that. So I just put a bigger bend on it just to keep it in. Okay. So there it is, a handle with a basket. Going to Granny's. Alright, so now you got the little piece of wire here. Hopefully this one's long enough. Yeah, it should be. I am just going to attach it to as much of the copper handle as I can. Just for that thing, I just need a good contact, or the actual power supply will shut off. And I'm going to run this down to the bottom, just like so. Now this piece might not be long enough. Now what I'm going to do is feed it back to the next hole on the bottom. What I want to do is I want to expose as much of this little wire to the inside of the basket as I can. That way any items you have in there has a better chance of contacting the copper. I mean, the cage itself will be electrified, so it'll be fine. But I just like to put this extra piece in here just to ensure that I'm getting good contact with any of the items I have sitting down and below. Again, this is not something I'd recommend you do with, you know, items that shouldn't be tampered with, or, you know, your valuable coins. This is just for items that you want to preserve for yourself. I mean, by all means, do your own research, what you think you should have, what you should be using, and go from there. This is just a, you know, if you're interested in wanting to do it, this is an easy way to do it. It's affordable. You know, it's not as hard as what everyone thinks it is to do an electrolysis. Just get rid of all the scraps. So there you go. So say now you have a small item. That's not a good example. It's got a hook on it. What do we got here? I'm trying to find something here. We'll just go with this piece of copper. Won't work, but now you can just take it, throw it in your basket. I'm actually, I use a piece of wood. I've made some changes. I'm going to bring over the electrolysis at the end here to show you. But instead of this bar, I'm using a piece of wood. I'm just going to show you for an example. So now this will hang. This will sit on your bucket, and you'll submerge it like this. Now, I will show you when I bring mine over. I actually attached my electrode right to the basket. I found when I was loading it onto the bar here, it was just too much metal, and that was causing the CP, or the power supply, to overheat. Not necessarily the power supply, the actual wires themselves. The power supply was pumping out the power. The wires couldn't handle it. Going from the small gauge wire coming out of the power supply onto the large copper, just putting too much load on it, and it was just overheating. And ate my bars all up. But anyway, actually these are pretty good. If you have an old printer, just take it apart, and a lot of them have these little bars in it. I got a whole basket of them outside. I rip apart computers for the gold and other items in it. These are great for this. Okay, so that is complete. What I'll do now is I'll bring over the electrolysis. I'll set it up on the table, and I'll just show you some of the changes I have made to it, because I have changed it quite a bit. I changed the container that it was in to something a little more solid, and I just made some adjustments to the actual power supply itself. Okay, so hold on a sec. Okay, here's the top side of the electrolysis tank. Now, as you can see, let's move it over a little bit here. This thing's kind of temperamental. As you can see, it's bubbling mainly on this side over here. I think it's buzzing. I got it sitting on that something. All right. So it's all mainly bubbling on this side. Right now, I've just got the other bars over on the corners here. So basically, all the power is just running in this direction right now. Earlier, when I had too much copper wound through the basket, and I tried 4 corners, that's where it really overloaded. It bubbled like crazy, but there was just too much going through these little wires. And you can see here, it's bubbled a little bit, and that's where it started melting. But like I said, I keep an eye on it when I'm troubleshooting for sure, and setting things up to make sure it's good. So as you can see, this has only been going probably now for about half an hour, and that was clean, fresh water when I started. So there's definitely some action going on. Right now, I do have that money in there. It may look a little dark right now, but most of that will wash right off. Don't worry, I won't get electrocuted. As long as I'm not holding all the ends and power is not that high. This is actually just a new pence. And for the most part, that's going to rub right off. The black is pretty normal when it comes to electrolysis, but that'll come right off. But, you know, you haven't damaged the coin. I haven't scrubbed it with a brush or got in there marking it up. It's a real safe way to clean items without damaging the actual metal. I mean, you know, when you get in there and you're checking it when you're metal detecting that, you're doing more damage than this thing's ever going to do. So, like I said, I just wouldn't leave it in there for too long. I mean, after a while, it could start affecting it. I mean, these things got clean quick. The first time I've had it in here a few times now, just testing. And this stuff wipes right off. That actually looks like a cheap, I'm not even sure if that's brass. Anyway, it's an old round. This is just rubbing right off now. It's pretty much clean. There's nothing left. And that hasn't been in there all that long. So yeah, it does a good job. None of the coins are affected. I'm still on the fence there on some of the clad currency. Actually, that was hard to get off. I couldn't get that black off before. It was on there previously. So that's working really well. Now, this isn't really clad. It's just the composite, the Canadian coins. Yeah, see, it is coming off. It is clad. So it is getting a bit of copper. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for your clad. But throw your copper in there. I have no issues with it. I mean, it's up to you. I'll leave it to you. I won't, like I said, I wouldn't put any of my expensive coins or my silvers in there. Not a chance. But for coins that they're not concerned about, no value, I'm okay with it. I have no problems putting that stuff in there. I haven't built this for that, but I'm going to use it for all my modern currency. Instead of running it through a tumbler, this is a lot safer than a tumbler will be, or any other harsh method. So anyway, just want to show you, I guess watch the previous video where I built the electrolysis. I used a jumper to jump the green and the black wires. Well, I've just cut them and just wound them together. I pulled the tape off just so you guys can see it right now. That way I don't have to worry about knocking the jumper out while I walk by it. It's just a lot easier. The power supply will not run. You got to find off the main batch of wires that go into your plug into the bottom of your CPU board. This big one here. You're going to want to find the green one, and it needs to be grounded to any black wire, preferably the one right next to it. But any black wire will be fine. The CPU will, I keep calling it CPU. The power supply will run as long as that's jumped. Okay, as you can see, everything seems to be working good here. Again, I'm going to mess with it a little bit. I'm probably going to try some more cathodes, anodes. I should really remember which one is what. But I'm going to try a few more in the other corners and see if the load's okay for this setup. Right now, with not overloading that basket with items, not too much copper, there's no heat whatsoever on these wires. It's cold as a cucumber. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try the other corners and see if that works. And yeah, the more surface area you can get around the basket, the better it'll work. Okay, let me just set that back down. Okay, guys, once again, thank you so much for being here. I hope I've answered a few of the questions or concerns that you may have. Like I said, depending on where you live, what country you're in, make sure you check on your regulations when it comes to reportable items. There's the word I was looking for. So in yeah, the UK, they have to report any, I believe it's any major finds that are historical that need to be reported to the proper people. And I'm not sure how that works, whether they classify it and give it back to you, or they might buy it back from you to go to the museum. Interesting system anyway. I've caught a little bit of it throughout the years, but I'm not 100% on all the rules when it comes to that. So let me know if any other concerns you have. I will follow up on the money situation. I'm going to leave it a little bit longer just to see what happens. I'm real curious actually myself on the zinc money and see what this does, to see if it actually destroys it, because that money is terrible. We've all dug that zinc garbage out of the ground and we know what it looks like. Alright guys, so Anyway, I hope this helps. Like I said, this is not a be-all, end-all to everything. There's certain situations you use this, certain times you won't. I have the bigger tub now just because I got a couple plow blades that I dug, and I want to do a plow blade just to see how it turns out in here. So I'm probably going to have to fill this up with a little bit more water. But anyway, yeah, it's a good system. A lot of museums actually use electrolysis for removing rust off items. It is one of the better ways of doing it. For the cannonballs, big items like that. Another thing too is when this is like for not necessarily the copper and stuff like that, it's not going to happen. But when you're looking with your iron items, it needs to be addressed as soon as it's done in here. Rinse it off, and you either have to do whatever, wax it, or whatever you're doing with it, whatever process. That's a whole other topic on what you use on that. Some things are good to do, some are not. I read one about using olive oil that they've used on metals. Terrible, terrible idea. Do not use olive oil. A lot of people wax, so they'll dip the cannonballs in wax and let them drip off, just to preserve the history. Okay, guys. Hope this helps again. Thanks for being here. Remember to head down, hit subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Love your comments. Just fantastic. Keep them coming. I will see you next time. Still got some more stuff planned. A lot of stuff to do down here in the basement. We'll see you next time. You guys have a good night.